Ever caught your toddler banging their head against the wall over and over and felt your heart stop, wondering if something's seriously wrong? At gut-wrenching panic, the spiral of "is this normal?" I've been there, and I know it can haunt your every thought. But here's the lifeline you need right now. Most of these quirky, even alarming toddler behaviors are just stepping stones in their wild little journey of growing up. I'm diving deep into 5 common toddler quirks that stress new parents out. Headbanging, refusing clothes, mouthing everything, exploring their bodies, and rejecting food, and unpacking what they really mean so you can breathe easier and know when to act. Let's zoom in on something that'll make your skin crawl at first, but might just shift how you see your little one. Why does a toddler barely able to string 2 words together resort to slamming their head against a crib or floor? It's not just random chaos. Picture this: a tiny human bubbling with frustration, desperate to tell you they're mad or overwhelmed, but their words are stuck. That headbanging, seen in 15 to 20% of babies and toddlers, often starting after 6 months and peaking between 18 months and 2 years, becomes their raw, physical cry for help. I've watched kids do this in sheer exasperation, their little faces scrunched up, unable to say, "I'm mad." So they let their bodies scream it instead. Or sometimes it's the opposite. A soothing rhythm, like a lullaby of thuds against a mattress to calm themselves to sleep. Sounds bizarre, right? But that repetitive motion can be a comfort blanket when words fail. Now, here's the catch. It's usually a phase that fades as their vocabulary grows. But if they're bruising themselves, doing it playfully instead of self-soothing, or still at it long after they can talk, that's a red flag. I remember a mom I worked with, her 2-year-old leaving welts on his forehead, not stopping even when it hurt. That's when we knew it was time to loop in a pediatrician to check for deeper triggers. If you're seeing this, don't wait. A chat with a professional can uncover if it's tied to communication delays or something more. And trust me, getting ahead of it feels like lifting a boulder off your chest. Keep watching them close. Notice if words start replacing bangs, or if the pattern shifts. That's your clue they're growing through it. But let's not stop here. What about when they fight tooth and nail against something as simple as a t-shirt? Before we tackle the full lineup of toddler mysteries, let's lay the groundwork on why these little humans act in ways that can drive us up the wall. Toddlers, roughly between 1 and 3 years old, are in a whirlwind of development. Their brains are wiring up fast, their bodies are testing limits, and their emotions are bigger than their tiny vocabularies can handle. Think of them as explorers in a world they don't fully get yet, using actions over words to figure it out. That's why headbanging, as we've touched on, often ties to frustration or self-soothing. Research backs this, showing it peaks when language skills lag, fading by age 3 for most. Then there's clothing refusal, which can be a power play of independence. No, I won't wear that. Or a sensory nightmare where fabrics feel like sandpaper on their skin. I've seen kids sob through every morning dressing, not out of defiance, but because a tag or seam scratched like a thorn. Mouthing toys or clothes past 18 months, that's often a leftover from babyhood exploration, when hands weren't nimble enough, or a sign of teething pain relief. But if it's daily after that age, it could hint at sensory needs or motor delays. Body exploration, especially between 3 and 6 years, is pure curiosity, not mischief. Think of them mapping out their own anatomy with no shame, just wonder. And food refusal, dubbed food neophobia, hitting hard at 18 months to 2 years, stems from a primal fear of the unfamiliar. New textures or colors on a plate can look like danger to their cautious little minds. Studies show it can take 15 to 20 exposures before a kid accepts a new food. So patience isn't just a virtue, it's a survival tactic. Each of these behaviors, while stressful, often marks a normal phase. But the line between typical and concerning is where we need sharp eyes. Let me paint a picture. A dad I knew swore his 2-year-old's headbanging was just a quirk until he noticed cuts on her scalp and no slowdown, even as she started talking. That's when we stepped in with a speech therapist, finding her frustration stemmed from a language delay. Support changed everything. Another mom struggled with her son's hatred of clothes, tantrums erupting over every sock, until an occupational therapist pinpointed sensory sensitivities and suggested softer fabrics. Mornings went from war zones to giggles. These aren't just stories. They're proof that understanding the why behind the behavior can flip your perspective from panic to problem solving. So let's break each down, starting with those clothing battles. Because if you've ever wrestled a screaming toddler into a sweater, you know that's a special kind of chaos. And beyond that, we've got to ask, what if these quirks aren't just phases, but signals of something deeper we're missing? Here's a curveball to chew on. What if your toddler's meltdown over getting dressed isn't just them being stubborn, but a silent scream about how their skin feels betrayed by every stitch? Sensory processing challenges can turn a simple t-shirt into torture. I've sat with parents who describe their mornings as battlegrounds. Picture a 2-year-old, red-faced, clawing at a cotton top, shrieking, "Itchy, too tight," even though it's the right size. One little girl I knew would cycle through 5 outfits before collapsing in tears. Not because she was picky, but because every tag felt like a needle, every seam like a scrape. It's not drama, it's distress. For these kids, fabric isn't just fabric. It's a sensory assault they can't articulate. Think about it, if someone forced you into a shirt made of burlap, wouldn't you fight back or fidget all day until you could rip it off? That's their reality. The fix isn't forcing compliance, it's detective work. Watching for patterns. Do they tug at clothes constantly, scratch at tags, or beg to stay naked rather than go out? Can clue you in. If this sounds familiar, a consult with an occupational therapist can map out their sensory preferences, pointing you to softer materials or seamless designs. I've seen it transform families. Once they swapped to tagless, buttery soft tees, that same girl went from daily meltdowns to bounding out the door. But let's widen the lens. Mouthing objects ties into this sensory puzzle too. Past 18 months? If they're still gnawing on toys or shirt collars daily, not just during teething spurts of a few days, it might signal they're craving sensory input or lagging in fine motor skills. I recall a boy who, at 20 months, chewed everything in sight. Not because of teeth cutting through, but because his hands couldn't yet grip and explore like his peers. A therapist introduced textured toys for his hands, and the mouthing faded. These aren't isolated quirks. They're pieces of a bigger developmental picture. Are you seeing these signs stack up in your own home? That's the question to sit with as we push deeper into behaviors that test every ounce of your patience. Now, let's hit the emotional peak and tackle the 2 behaviors that can push you to your breaking point. Those moments that make you question everything in public or at the dinner table. First, body exploration. Imagine you're at the park, chatting with another parent, when your 3-year-old casually reaches into their pants, exploring with the curiosity of a scientist, right there in broad daylight. Your face burns, you stammer an apology. But here's the raw truth. This is normal between ages 3 and 6. They're not being inappropriate. They're mapping their own bodies. No different from poking at their nose or ears. It's innocent wonder, not shame-worthy behavior. I've seen parents freeze in horror only to learn it's a universal phase. Studies show most kids do some form of self-exploration as they discover what's me. The key is staying calm. Don't snap, stop it. That plants guilt over something natural. Instead, gently redirect them to a toy or set a boundary. Hey, exploring is okay, but let's do that in private, like in your room. I remember a dad who cringed every time his son did this at family gatherings, until he mastered a calm redirect, turning it into a game of let's build a tower. And the behavior shifted to private moments. But watch for obsession. If it overshadows play or social time, a pediatrician or child therapist can ensure it's healthy curiosity, not a fixation. Now, pivot to food refusal or food neophobia, peaking at 18 months to 2 years. Picture this. You've cooked a colorful meal, proud of the variety, only for your toddler to shove the plate away, screaming over a new veggie they loved last week. It's not defiance, it's fear. Their little brains are wired to distrust unfamiliar shapes, colors, textures. Evolution's way of protecting them from poison, now backfiring at your table. Research says it can take 15 to 20 tries before they accept a new food. No pressure allowed. I've coached parents through this grind. One mom offered peas nightly, no forcing, just placing them there. By attempt 17, her son nibbled, then devoured them. But here's the alarm bell. If their diet shrinks to fewer than 10 foods, or they're stuck on formula alone, that's beyond normal fussiness. A speech therapist specializing in feeding can dig into why. Maybe it's sensory, maybe motor skills around chewing, and craft strategies. I've seen a kid go from sipping only milk at 5 years to tasting fruits once we addressed oral sensitivities with gentle exercises. These battles, body curiosity and food fights, test your grit, but they're often growth in disguise. The kicker is knowing when normal tips into needs help. One family ignored their daughter's extreme food refusal, thinking she'd outgrow it, until weight loss flagged a sensory aversion. Early intervention turned it around. Another parent shamed their son's exploration, only to see him withdraw emotionally. A therapist's guidance rebuilt trust. These aren't just phases to endure, they're windows into your child's wiring. Headbanging might fade as words bloom, but if injuries pile up, it's a scream for help. Clothing wars might be sensory, not sass, and mouthing could signal unmet needs. Every quirk tells a story, and decoding it can shift your parenting from survival to connection. So, stick with me. Let's lighten the load with a laugh at how absurdly adorable these struggles can be when you zoom out. All right, let's take a breather and chuckle at the sheer ridiculousness of wrestling with a toddler who acts like they're judging your fashion choices on a runway. Picture your little one, arms crossed, glaring at a perfectly cute outfit, like they're a tiny critic at a design show, declaring with every fiber of their being, "This fabric? Unacceptable." I've been in those trenches. Mornings where I'd hold up a shirt, so proud of my pick, only to have my kid fling it across the room as if I'd insulted their very soul. It's maddening, but when you step back, it's almost comical how much personality shines through their protests. Or think of dinner time where they inspect every bite like a mini food detective, squinting at a carrot stick as if it's a suspect in a lineup. Nope, too orange, too crunchy, send it back. I've laughed through tears with a mom who swore her son treated broccoli like it was an alien invader, poking it suspiciously before launching it off the high chair. These moments, while they test your last nerve, are also glimpses of their budding quirks, their fierce independence, their raw reactions to a world they're still decoding. Even headbanging, as scary as it looks, can have a funny side when you realize they're just trying to rock themselves to sleep. like they've invented their own heavy metal lullaby. I've shared coffee with a dad who mimicked his daughter's rhythmic thuds on the crib, joking she was auditioning for a band. Humor became his way to cope while we worked on safer soothing tricks. And don't get me started on body exploration. Yes, it's mortifying when they decide the grocery store is the place to investigate. But isn't there a tiny bit of awe in how unfiltered their curiosity is? I've whispered with parents over playground benches, swapping stories of those, "oh no, not here" moments, turning red cheeks into shared giggles. These kids aren't trying to drive us nuts. They're just tiny humans figuring out life, one hilarious misstep at a time. It's like watching a comedy sketch you didn't sign up for, except you're the lead actor, and the script is pure chaos. So let's hold on to that laughter, because it's the glue that keeps us sane when the days feel endless. These quirks, these battles, they're not just stress. They're the messy, beautiful proof our kids are growing, feeling, learning. And isn't that worth a smile, even through the exhaustion? So here's the heart of it. Those toddler behaviors, headbanging, clothing wars, mouthing, body exploration, food refusal, they're mostly normal milestones, not crises. They're your little one's way of navigating a big, confusing world with limited tools. Frustration spills out in bangs, sensory overload in clothing fights, curiosity in touches, fear in food rejections. Most fade with time, words, or patience. 15 to 20 food tries, softer fabrics, calm redirects. But stay sharp. Injuries, extreme limits, or persistence past typical ages mean it's time for a pro's insight. You've got this. Understanding their why turns panic into power. If you found a sliver of relief or a laugh in these stories, stick around for more. Hit that like, subscribe. It's the fuel that keeps me sharing. And hey, drop a comment. What's the wildest toddler quirk you've seen? And how'd you handle it? I'm all ears for your chaos tales.